Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with Louis D'Souza and Amy Blackford. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy to be here doing this with you, and so happy you decided to do it with us as well. And we are starting off the week here doing something we haven't done in a while. We don't actually have an active topic right out of the gate, which is kind of unusual lately. But Amy, I think we may have stumbled upon one in our pre-call conversation in a general sense. And that is the ability to receive information from the other side.
Yes.
Because I learned something new about you, something I didn't know. I mean, I knew that you do lucid dreaming. I knew you have a number of different skills. I didn't know you were a channeler.
Yes, it started.
And that's pretty cool.
Thank you. It started actually when I believe I told you all this story when I first started on the podcast, where I was channeling what I've come to call my higher self. And it started as a feeling. I could feel the energy around me, and that moved into getting these downloads of information. And at first it was like getting the keys, the secret to the universe, like we were talking about, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because I would get this download of information and then I would completely forget it. So the channel session would be over. So then what I started doing, because it would all be in my head, I would hear this information being spoken to me as if it was from another person. And it was in a male voice. So it went from there to, if I vocalized it while the channeling was happening, like the stream David does, or something like Abraham Hicks, I would start to understand, like I would remember bits and pieces of it if I would say it out loud. It was almost like it basically integrated the information better. And then it got to the point I could start feeling a channel session come on out of nowhere when I was meditating, and I would take my phone and hit record and record it. So I have lots and lots of these recorded. And now over time, it's interesting, when I channel, I can almost remember everything. But in the beginning, I really couldn't. I can also communicate with, I was telling Walt before the show started, it started when someone close to me would pass. My Aunt Katie, she was like a big sister to me. She died very young. And then my father died 8 years ago. And basically just by saying their name and calling out to them, it would begin with me feeling their energy, like I did with my higher self. It feels like a person is literally standing next to you. And then I can hear their voice in my head, and mental images will get sent. Now me and my father meet up in what I'm saying lucid dream spaces, and they're really very profound visits. I've also had experiences where my father wasn't sick, and I'm almost getting flashes of an alternate timeline that we lived in, where him and my mother didn't get divorced, and he was on a much healthier path than the one he was and the one that I'm remembering. And I get these futuristic flashes of me in a completely different life. He's still alive. It's really interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah. I mean, I remember you talked about the lucid dreaming. I kind of remember you talking about having a single channeling episode. I just do it regularly, like, oh, hey, Dad, how you doing?
Yes. I also have another aspect of myself. She basically lives on a version of Earth that was never industrialized. It was never taken over by the Industrial Revolution. And so it's very tribal. And I call her the warrior woman. That's why I use that word a lot. And she started coming through about 10 years ago. And I know this isn't me. First of all, she's got an accent. It's a really interesting accent. And she speaks to me in ways that I do not speak to myself. Like, she gives it to me really straight. I call it getting kind of the bitch slap.
Oh, my.
Because I will have a problem or a challenge, and she will just give me very tough love advice. And I've found it really essential, honestly, my growth over the last 10 years. So I also do that. She only comes through when I invite her to, or I ask her to, like on New Year's, my birthday. There's always like a ritual behind it. And also if I'm going through a surgery, or I'm having some sort of sickness, and there's some broader perspective that I really am not getting a handle on, I will ask her to give me her wisdom, and I'll record it. I always record those, because she comes through, I channel it, and then it's done. So it's not something I talk about with everyone, because people think it's weird, and I'm fine with being weird. I'm already, it's fine. But it's not something that, I just talk about randomly at parties or, family dinners or anything.
I get it. Yeah, that's fine. No, I have to say I'm kind of the shock has kind of worn off a little bit. So I'll ask Louis. I mean, is there anything you want to tell me about? Any special skills you have that I didn't know about?
Oh, I wouldn't know where to begin.
So modest,
uh,
Louis, so
a
modest.
lot have come out over the time, but there are things that I was thinking about last night that I should possibly share on the show. Mainly to do with awareness, and how it manifests in my life, which is really quite interesting. Um, but I remember Amy talking that she did this right in the beginning, so it's definitely not a shock for me at all. I remembered it quite clearly. So yeah, no, it's very interesting. I'm glad a lot more people are being able to tune their vibrational interpreting machines into different stations and play with them, because it's fun.
It is, it's a
It's
lot of
fun.
fun. And it's also very useful. It's very therapeutic. There's all these different modalities for it. So yeah, I've really learned it's just another tool in the toolbox. I have my writing, meditation. I have lots of different tarot cards, and I do these readings for myself and my friends. And the messages that come through are just so profound. I don't actually pull the cards. I've shown my friends, we have a process that we go through. They pick their own cards, and then we look at the cards as a whole, and they're all from different decks. So it's not just tarot cards. There's like the Four Agreement deck of cards, and they all say one big message when you read them together. So I'll give my interpretation. If my friend is having a hard time interpreting what it's saying, I will ask them, what intention, what did you ask before you pulled this, set of cards? And then we can kind of go through and do an interpretation. So it's also proven to be a wonderful spiritual tool at certain times in my life to get answers that I might not otherwise get in any other way.
And I think the part I was reacting to, I kind of remember that you did receive some information. I guess I kind of thought it was limited to stuff that was directly related to you. But like you
Yeah.
were telling me before the show, it can be related to anybody. I mean,
Well,
somebody you don't
here's the
even know,
thing.
like you were just saying.
It's definitely starting to expand. The more that I've done it on just myself and practicing with myself, I have become, the closer I am with a person, so a best friend, my child, my husband, if we have a really close connection, I am finding that, yes, I can start channeling. Sometimes I think it's coming from me, and then I will realize it's coming from another place, and we can have that dialogue, just to see how on point it is. I like it too because it's not invasive. I find sometimes people that have this gift, it can almost feel invasive when they start wanting to dictate to you what's happening and what's going on. So I only give that information when I feel really inspired to, which it honestly isn't all that frequently. It's mostly geared around my own journey, but I am
Right.
finding that it is starting to come through more and more for others that I'm close to, if they're having a hard time with something or they're going through something that they need some help with, just to kind of nudge them and help them along the way.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. All right. Well, learn something new every day. That's
I
cool.
love it.
I love the fact that you're enthusiastic about it too. I mean, yes, you keep it quiet, and I understand why you would keep it quiet. But I mean, your enthusiasm comes through. Well, your enthusiasm always comes through. Let's go back and put a preamble in place. But beyond the fact that your enthusiasm always comes through, you're enthusiastic about this. I mean, it comes through pretty loudly that you like this. You enjoy that you can do this,
Oh,
even
I
if you're
love
not
it.
telling
I
everybody.
have my own, I call it the perch in the new house. It's my meditation room with the cards and the candles and all my things that I've collected that are kind of sacred objects. I have to say that my spiritual journey at this point has definitely, it was always, I was a writer and I'm on this mission to write books and I'm an artist and I got a degree in it. And I really always outlined that that was my purpose. That was my reason for being. And honestly, over the last 5 to 10 years, I have to say my spiritual evolution is my purpose, my it's the thing that I get the most excited, enthusiastic about. And all the other stuff is just kind of offshoots of that. But that's really the core of it.
So,
That's
so you're
cool.
saying that the journey is more important than the destination, is what I'm hearing.
100%. Yes. And I have to remind myself of that because I do sometimes, I'm a little impatient. If my husband was in here, he'd say, yeah, she's a lot impatient. So this has been like with my books, I've been working for 20 years, hasn't really gone anywhere as far as well, who are you published with? How much money have you made? But the journey of writing them has been tremendous. It's been amazing. And so I really have learned the journey is the point, like what Louis is saying. The destination, once you get there, what are you going to do? Okay, you look around, take a few snapshots, and it's on to the next one.
Exactly.
Right?
I think people who set goals, and it's something I haven't done for forever because it's never satisfied me.
I know what you mean.
And if they just appreciated the journey rather than getting to the goal, you'd be able to live in the present. Because the goal is in the future, isn't it?
It 100% is. That's all it is.
And
Which
you
also
really
means that you're living for about 1 out of every 5 million time increments.
Exactly,
So-
exactly. That's the logic behind it all. Yeah.
And then you
Right.
don't even enjoy it. I used to.
And when you get it, you're so deflated. It's like, oh my
Yes.
God, I got it now.
It's so anticlimactic.
I got my
It really
Jaguar
is.
now. I want the 4x4 version.
You don't even enjoy it. And I know because I suffered from this tremendously, in my teens, 20s, even my early 30s, where I set my goals. I would have, my steps to get to the goal. And what would happen? I would achieve the goal. And it felt anticlimactic. And now I had to set the next goal to kind of get that rush that I was moving towards something. And I was really never stopping and appreciating what I had already accomplished, what was even happening in those moments leading up to, getting that goal achieved. And so now I look at it more as what's the overall intention that I'm painting, and let that kind of dazzle me as I go and be surprised, as opposed to trying to so, neatly stitch it all together and it's going to go this way and that way. That's kind of boring if you think about it.
I'll take it a step further. I'll say that if I set goals and aim for goals, I get paranoid. I mean, seriously, I get really all wrapped
I
up
think
in.
a lot of people do.
Oh, I get wrapped up in all kinds of really nasty feeling stuff. And it's like, why would you want to do this? I don't understand why people are promoting this. Are they actually doing this in their lives and surviving? That's the thought that keeps going through my mind.
What I'm hearing you say is when you set a goal, the mind immediately starts to argue with it, tell you why
the
it's not
trains
gonna
go in
happen.
different directions. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But more than that, while I'm in pursuit of it, because obviously I'm not living for the moment, I'm living for that final result. It's every step along the way, it's like riding a roller coaster that never ends.
Right.
And you're just getting thrown all over the place. It's like, this isn't fun. Where's the fun in this? This is terrible. This is miserable. All because, the goal's over there. Oh no, actually it has moved. I've moved. It's over here. Oh my God. Like, oh please, I can't handle this. It's
literally like you're chasing something that you can never catch. It's always slipping through your fingers.
Very often. Well, it becomes that, which is
think
literally true.
The Abraham Hicks emotional guidance scale puts it in perspective. When you're in the vicinity of a problem, you're nowhere near the vicinity of the solution,
right?
Or the vibration of the solution. So, just go a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. So if we did that with our goals as well, just try to go to the next feeling achievable step towards the goal.
Yes.
Then we would feel a lot more satisfaction.
I can enjoy that kind of goal setting. Yeah.
And then you have fun with it, so it becomes a dance. That's one thing I love about the Abraham Hicks message as well. She says they say it a lot. Have fun. If you're having fun, that means you're headed in the right direction, and you're already having fun. So even once you get this thing that you say is going to be even more fun, you're having fun the whole time. So isn't that really the point? Exactly. And I have gotten very comfortable saying that word. This is fun. Even in my author group, I love all of them, and I tell them, because it's focused on publication, and I tell them when it quits being fun, when you're working on your manuscript or you're researching agents, put it down, because you're not doing it any good. Focus on something else that feels good.
That's good. That's good advice. I'm curious also, just from what you guys were saying just then, if we look at it in terms of the little step by step, the little micro shift, as Daniel Mangano would call it, the micro shift approach, one little step at a time. Do you find that if you think about it that way, you actually end up more in the now quicker?
Of course, definitely. Yeah.
100%.
So if that's the case, then at what point do you lose track of the fact that you're setting little micro goals?
As quickly and as often as possible. I don't know.
Yes. Great answer, Louis. I am definitely realizing and relaxing so much around this whole goal setting idea, because it's driven what I thought was success in my life. I was, the straight A student, but I was not having fun. It was this amount of pressure that I was putting on myself. And I am enjoying my creativity in my life so much more now that I've taken that label of goal setting and understanding that this is it. Tomorrow is not promised. I know we all want to think it is, but if you're not enjoying right now, you're missing the point. You're missing the entire point.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating that as much as we know we're going to die, we don't really think we are, do we?
No.
We're going to be here tomorrow. It's never going to happen to me.
We start taking things for granted, even though we're not realizing that we're doing it.
And I feel that if we appreciated that death aspect of it more, we would live our lives just that little bit fuller, or a lot fuller, actually.
I've heard so many near-death experience or people that did die and came back. Their sense of purpose, it completely changed their dynamic with life. It completely opened them up to the beauty of it. Just a little plug here. I don't know if you guys have seen Pixar's newest animated movie. It's called Soul.
Yes, saw that.
Oh my, okay. So I love Pixar. I've always loved their movies. I think they've got great character development. Their animation is wonderful, but this movie really touched my spirit when I watched it. I highly recommend it. It's talking about what we are talking about right now in an animated movie for kids, which I love that.
Oh, fantastic. I might show it to my kids. I want to watch it first, but yeah, sounds great.
You really should watch it. It's really touching on exactly what we're talking about. Being in the present moment, that being your spark in life. It's beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Alex King mentioned it to me, and I watched that on her recommendation, and I was pleased to report to her she'd finally recommended something I enjoyed.
Oh, and it's
I was like, wow, this is a miracle.
So on top of it, Louis, you will appreciate the humor.
That's right.
The humor in it's just really on point, and it makes you laugh as well. It's one of those thought-provoking, but it's also really funny. So yeah.
As we're into recommendations, I wanted to recommend a book to you, Amy. It's called A Soul's Journey by Peter Richelieu.
A Soul's Journey?
By Peter Richelieu. Not the easiest book to get hold of generally, but these days I'm not sure.
That's typical for Louis books, by the way. Louis books are really difficult to get a hold of.
I'm old, I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
It's about you'll relate to it. It's about a guy in South Africa, in Durban. I think he's an English guy who was there. And I was in Durban when I read the book, which was quite cool. And his brother died in the war. I think it was the Second World War or something. It was a plane pilot or something. And he was totally distraught by it. And he went inside and asked for answers. And an Indian dude rocks up at his door and says, "You called me." He said, "No, I didn't." He said, "Yes, you did." And he sits down and he starts teaching him all about life, the universe, and everything, and about out-of-body experiences. And he teaches him how to have them, and he teaches him how to connect with his brother on the inner planes and the adventures they have. And this is the first and only book the guy ever wrote, and he wrote it because he felt obligated to share this information.
I am going to definitely look this up, because it's really been very profound for me. Me and my father were estranged, to keep it really short. He really was, the last 20 years of his life, he had just debilitated mentally. And he was basically holding on to a lot of resentment and anger over my parents' divorce. And here I am growing. I've grown into a young woman, and I got tired of listening to his same old victim story. And I kept trying to kind of shake him out of it, but he was in a mental time loop. And it was like he was refusing to have a relationship with me in the present moment. He kept wanting to drag me back to rehashing and going over these very painful memories. And I drew a boundary with him. So long story short, my father ended up dying, and I was not there with him. And that did make me sad, but I also felt a sense of relief that he was finally free of his body. because I understood he was so trapped in that there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do to change it.
It's very frustrating when people get to that position where, any advice that you try give or anything you do to help is just
It just
refused
kept
and
adding
rejected
more
out
fuel.
of principle, not because they don't need it, and it's
Right.
just like,
and I finally came to a place of peace where I thought, I can't change him, but I also can't sacrifice myself.
yep.
I'll get pulled down. And it was a very hard.
You get to the place of being very, very aware that some people you can help and some people you can't.
Right.
And it's okay to let those ones go,
Yes. So this was a big lesson for me in learning that even if someone is family, my own father that I loved and I was loyal to, I'm not going to allow their toxicity to affect me.
Invade your life, yeah.
So about a year after he died, I started finding pieces of mementos, letters, photos, and I started connecting with his true essence. All of the good memories started coming back from my childhood. And I started talking to him as if he was right there with me.
Mm-hmm.
And before I knew it, he was right there with me, meaning I could feel his energy and then I could hear him speaking to me in my mind. And over the last 2 years, it's even gone to the next level where I said, I'm having out of body experiences and also very lucid dreams where we meet in these dream spaces and are getting to have these connections that I could not have with him while he was in his body. And we've had this wonderful communication going on, and he feels very liberated. He's not so hot on jumping back in another body anytime soon. and I'm enjoying a relationship with him that I did not get when he was still in his body. So I think that's really exciting.
I think you pointed out something that I'd like to amplify, and that is, he tells me, you said your dad says, he tells me that he doesn't want to jump into a body anytime soon. Now, what I wanted to point out to us humans that are here at the moment is, it is a big agreement and privilege on one level, but it's a bit of a sacrifice to come and play in this physical universe, because there is a lot of contrast.
Yes.
And we have our memory wiped of all previous things to a large degree until we start tuning into different stations. So we come here pretty much without the rule book of law of attraction and how the universe works. And we make a leap of faith. We go in from the very aware known source energy to this lovely contrasting universe.
Right.
And we do get thrown around a lot, and we know we're kind of going to have that. Although, as Abram says, before you come in, you really have the clear intention that you're going to do this, and you're going to do that, and you're going to focus on this, you're going to focus on that. But in between, we do get knocked around. So in the Soul's Journey book as well, he does say that, okay, I don't know how much of this I believe, but he says that there is a great demand for balanced parents out there.
Mm-hmm.
Children
not surprised
who want to
by
come
that.
in to have some really balanced and clear and fine,
I didn't
really
have to have an
balanced.
out of body or channeled experience in order to tell you that was true, by the way. I just
Exactly.
Yes.
It always rings bells with me, but I don't expect to throw that on anybody else and tell them to believe it. But that's me. I always like letting people choose what they want to believe. But yeah. He points out other things in that book as well. One of the things
I'm definitely going to look this book up.
A lot of people
I'm so intrigued.
are feeling sorry for animals that are encaged in some shape or form. But he explains that you go from plant to animal to human in the soul expansion stages. And when you get to an animal that is close to a human, you get comfortable enough with humans to evolve into them. So if you're a tiger in a cage or an elephant that gets ridden around or whatever, if you're in a situation, or cat or dog is a very close to a human, level of advancement. And he portrays that kind of progression, which is really, really interesting.
Oh, wow, that's
because
really
a lot
neat.
of people have this issue about caged animals and all the rest of it. But if they think from the perspective of the growth of soul, they might look at it from a very different angle.
Well, yes, there's lots of things that we can get riled up about in this
Yes.
contrasting world that we're in. There are things that we could label as really negative that we wouldn't want to experience. And I understand when people start tapping into, I would say, the law of attraction, that is one of the most common things. Oh, look, we're getting to see the kitty. One of the most common things that I hear from people that are first being introduced to this. But what about, this fill in the blank, some atrocious part of society? Were they asking for this? Did they align themselves with this thing? And it's hard for them to kind of wrap their mind around how this all works. And I get that.
I just wanted to show you just how traumatic it is for this cat who's trying to understand what it's like to be human. I mean, he's just totally overworked on the whole thing. So
I honestly say my cats are more evolved because I'm literally their servant. They get to nap, eat, and play all day. No job. They only have to look cute.
I hear you.
Well, they're really trying to teach you what you should be doing in your life.
Honestly, my cats ground me when I am stressing out or upset, and they can always sense it too. They'll come near me. It really grounds me to just tune in to their simplicity and their joy, and it really does raise my vibration. It's one of my favorite reasons to have animals, honestly, because
by the way, Louis, I wanted to let you know, Louis, that my wife has actually learned the lesson because she is mimicking the cats perfectly.
Oh, brilliant. It's a great phase. Well done, Louise. Brr, we're waiting for the brr.
Oh, she even does that. Honest to God, she really does.
Scratch under the chin. Oh, that's great. There's another thing I wanted to talk about briefly, is the words we use to in the process of falling in love. I wanted to use those words, falling in love, and another word I wanted to use, sentence I wanted to use that society uses often is love is blind. I wanted to hear your takes on what you believe falling in love means and why they use those words.
For me, it means that people become so consumed with their emotions towards another person. It kind of feels like they're falling. They have no control. They're kind of being sucked into this vacuum. I know it might seem like a dark way of looking at it, but it's almost this all-consuming feeling, when somebody's attracted to someone else, kind of takes them over. They're falling off this cliff, free fall, skydive, might kill me, might be awesome. I'm not really sure. That's my take on what that means. What about you, Walt?
Kind of along the same line, actually.
Yeah.
In fact, before I met Louise, and she and I have been together 22 years now, I pretty much determined I didn't want to fall in love because I had an association of what that meant that I didn't like very much. And the association was based on a number of different inputs from people I knew who had fallen in love and what had happened with their relationships and so forth. My own experience with it too, because I had experiences of my own. And I began to realize that what we call falling in love and we treat it as if it were a really great thing, it's actually pretty dysfunctional.
Yes.
It's a very dysfunctional state. I prefer to think of it in terms of rising in love.
Wow. I like that.
Because that's the way the experience was with Louise was. I mean, literally, I told Louise within the first few months of us meeting that I couldn't honestly tell her I was falling in love with her. I was a little bit worried that I might disappoint her. I was really glad to find out, not too surprised because of her background as a psychotherapist, but I was glad to hear that she was quite okay with that. But the fact was, I wasn't experiencing that. And I liked that fact a lot because it meant, among other things to me, it meant that I did not feel like I had to be made whole by my relationship with her.
There you go. Boom. Perfect.
And that's really what it comes down to. The person who's falling in love is basically saying, I want to subsume myself to you on those parts of myself that I have not developed sufficiently.
You complete me. No, you should already be two complete people
exactly
together. Yes. Lance was the first, when I was only 20 when I met him, and he was so different than any other man I'd ever met at that time in my life, because he wasn't asking me to complete him. He already was complete and felt complete. And that's where the attraction came from. Because at that time in my life, I too was like, I don't want to be in a relationship. I mean, I know I was only 20, but I'd had long-term relationships before then. And they always felt dysfunctional. I was suffocating. I was being suppressed. I wasn't allowed to be my own person. I think that happens a lot, where you almost take on the identity of each other instead of being two whole people. You become one dysfunctional person.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it happens a lot too. And it's interesting you bring it up, Louis, because I'd actually thought about that exact question over the weekend. What does it
Wow.
mean? What does it mean to
I know,
fall
right?
in love?
Wow.
And what it finally coalesced in my mind was, it coalesced into, it's me being in a state of not loving myself enough. In other words, when I don't love myself enough, I need to get love from somewhere.
Yeah, you're
It's not coming from
displacing
inside.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's got to come from outside. And the moment that I'm doing that is the moment I'm tying myself down to my external world, where my external world is driving my experience. Well, I have plenty of experience with that. I know I don't like that approach at all. So I think I'll stay away from that one and try to build up my self-love instead. That's the conclusion I came to. But what's your thinking on it, Louis? Because you brought it up for a reason.
Yep.
Yeah, I wanted to throw a completely different spin on this.
All right.
All right, go for it.
So when I have fallen in love with certain individuals along the way, what I focused on, first of all, I'm euphoric. Totally euphoric. They just look at me, smile, and will just do anything, and I'm in seventh heaven. And what I'm doing is I'm only focusing on the aspects of that individual that I like.
Okay.
And I'm not seeing any of the things that are broken in them, or not, all the other side. So you're only focused on what you like about them, and you have no focus. You're blind. Love is blind. You're blind to all those things that aren't working well in their life. Obviously, when it's mutual, the other person's bringing to the table their best qualities, aren't they?
Yes.
And that is the initial stage of this whole falling in love scenario. So you've got your best characteristics coming out, their best characteristics coming out, and you've got this really nice state, which I want to promote to everybody, to look at everybody around them at the qualities that they love in that person, and to go back to the time when they fell in love, to think about it, to enact that level of focus in where you want to go and what you want to see in that person, because they will tend to rise to that expectation. And
well, I have to ask you, what's the falling part of falling in love?
The falling, it's a good question. Falling is part of getting out of the rational mind.
Okay.
You're falling. That's all falling away, and there's no rationalness to it. It's completely irrational. But it is sometimes, I mean, if I look back at my experiences, the best emotional times of my life, when I've absolutely sold my soul to this person, and I'm just absolutely enjoying just lying in my bed, thinking about them. It's just such a beautiful experience. And then
it really is.
You get to a level, that if you get past that and it doesn't blow up,
a big if.
Yeah.
When reality sets in.
Yeah. When you start seeing the parts of the other person that aren't all that attractive. Okay. So the focus not on what you want in that person is now falling away, and your focus on the other aspects which are popping up and hitting you in the face, because you can't really ignore them anymore as time goes by. Then you start falling out of that level of focus. And it's really the level of focus I wanted to talk about, because that is so key. If we all went around and only saw the best in everybody, no matter who they are and what they've done, you will just see so many things rising to the fore, so many qualities and aspects rising. But I just wanted to give people an example of where they could find this level of focus from, which is this whole falling in love aspect, because it really does. It really is a stage in your life, or an experience, usually, if anybody's had it. Not everybody's had them. When you've had this experience, you really understand what it's like to just focus on the good qualities of somebody. And the other thing is, that love is blind, and really, there really is a complete blindness to their faults. You don't see any of their
Right.
faults at all. And all your friends are saying, she's a bitch, or whatever, they're trying to point out all the faults, and you're just sitting there with these rose tinted glasses, and it's really good, because I'm using that a lot in my life now, and everybody around me, and just to see the best parts in them and looking at them, and it's really fun.
It's really
See,
a state, is what you're
what-
saying, being in love, that state of pureness, that state of joy. You're applying it to not just being in love with a partner, but with life in general.
Absolutely. Then it comes into every aspect. It's, the cat, the tablet you're taking, the microphone that you're speaking into right now, the beautiful faces of you guys.
Right, I love it.
You just start seeing the best in everybody, and you're not looking for, what has Amy done? Let me go check on the internet and see what she's done in the past. All that kind of stuff that can go on in people's minds. You just want to just let it all go. So it's past, it's history. Don't dig it up. Just go and focus on what you want, or the best you want out of this person, and the relationship.
What you're talking about here is what I call rising in love.
Yeah, I love
that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the rising part.
And when you feel this way and you evoke this type of emotion within yourself on a daily basis, and you go out into the world, I am amazed when people are like, the world is filled with all these bad people. And I'm like, I just keep intersecting with the most
at you
amazing, helpful,
no
joyful, whether it's the cashier at the grocery store, or I'm at the gas station, the waiter at the restaurant I go to. It really does. The person that I call for a service, they've been talking, they can feel my energy. And I swear I intersect with the most amazing people all of the time. And that's why I will constantly say there are so many more good people in this world, genuinely. I'm not saying that as some flaky comment. I mean, because I hold a certain vibration when I go out. It's revealed to me easily every single day. My neighbors, the kids playing outside, it's amazing. And I love it because it really does it's very refreshing when you do see all of these things kind of going on, to say, hey, but in my reality bubble, things are just sunshine and roses. I mean, I'm just saying.
Oh, you Pollyanna, you.
I know, right? But I'm really not.
Well, actually, it's a good thing I want to mention, by the way. I don't know if either of you have read the book Pollyanna. Being a Pollyanna is actually a very, very good thing.
Yes, good.
If you read the original book, it's basically what you're talking about, Louis. What has happened over time is that some people have decided to distort it and say, well, if you behave like that, then you're being unrealistic.
Right.
Which
That's
is
what I love about LOA in practicing the law of attraction. Is here's the thing, folks. We experience negative emotions. We have our own stuff, but it's learning to manage your own vibration. So yes, there are some people that project happiness all the time that it is not genuine. They have their head in the sand and they are not actually actively living. They have
feel that a mile away.
You can I can feel it a mile away. Then there are people,
couldn't always. But
yeah,
now it's very easy. Yeah.
Interesting thing, by the way, Amy, with the following up on the Pollyanna book.
Yeah.
Interesting thing happens in that book. She comes into the book, and throughout the book, she is exactly the way you and Louis have been describing, that kind of personality, always up, always finding the best in people, and so on and so forth. And early on, everybody she meets in the book looks at her like she's crazy, treats her like she's some sort of an idiot. She's such a moron, or she's going to be so easily taken advantage of, all this kind of stuff. By the end of the book, everybody loves her.
Right.
Including her biggest enemies.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is exactly what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
you like your biggest
power
enemies to be your friends.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, the climax of the story is where she actually gets injured in a car accident. And they're wondering if she's even going to make it. And the entire community rallies to help her,
Wow.
save her and rescue her and heal her. I mean,
Wow.
yeah. Yeah. So
I love
in the
stories
process
that
healing
have those types of
themselves.
messages. It's awesome.
so to all those people who accuse other people of being Pollyannas,
In your face.
Love it.
Oh, I love
But
it.
there's another side to it. The movie I really enjoy, which I can't remember, Walt, if you liked it or not, and I don't know if I've told you yet, Amy, is Meet Joe Black.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
It's full of a lot of one-liners, but at the end, death is in the body of Brad Pitt speaking to this guy, and he says, you're one of my favorites. Tell me your relationship with your wife. What's the best part of it? He said, you know what the best part is? She knows all my faults, and she still loves me.
Oh, I love that.
And so Des says, so what are your faults? No, it's not just one thing. It's more of an idea. it's a great scene. I just love that. It was very
Nice.
very pertinent to the other side of the coin, where you are spiritually mature enough to have a love that is able to see the other person's faults
Yes.
as their choice of growing mechanism, their choice of expansion tool, and appreciating it for what it is,
Exactly. Not judging them for it, because we can be so judgmental of ourselves. And I'm learning, for the longest time I was trying to change judging others. And I realized the only reason I was ever turning judgmental eyes on other people was because I so heavily judged myself, listening to that inner critic. And the more aware you become of it, the more you will be almost astounded at how much you are bullying yourself on a daily
oh God,
basis.
yes. Mm.
And I even catch myself now. I catch when this starts happening. I say, hey, hold the phone there, bully. Take a back seat. I'm on to you. It's okay. And there's like this inner child. I call it the perpetrator and victim. Basically there's these two aspects of yourself. So the perpetrator is the one constantly criticizing, judging. And then you've got your little victim child self that's kind of cowering and feeling sorry for itself. And it's kind of this really, it's a very, it's a system within you that can really, if you're not aware that it's there, it can almost eat up your day. So that's kind of almost what keeps you not in the present moment, is these two aspects of yourself kind of vying for attention instead of just being in harmony with yourself.
And in truth, they're both only one aspect. Those two aspects are only thoughts.
Right. That's all they are, thought forms.
Only he diminishes the word thought as if it was nothing. I mean,
and then these thoughts, because of the fact that humans aren't taught that there's two aspects to your life that, well, let's break it down to but differently. Let's say there's only two things that can ever really hurt you in your life, or be perceived as hurt, is your physical body and your psychological / emotional body. Yeah. Is there anything else besides that?
No.
That can get hurt? Yes? No?
I don't think so. No.
No?
I feel like this is a trick question.
No, it's not a question at all. That question. Yeah, no, I'm just trying to see if you guys can perceive anything outside that you can get hurt by, either physically or emotionally.
Well, I think it's safe to say I could get hurt by anything at all.
Yeah, because, but what aspects of you get hurt?
Any aspect, it doesn't matter, because any being hurt situation is one where I mentally choose to feel hurt. So it could be any situation where I choose to feel hurt. That's where I feel hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I understand what you're saying, Louis. So there's the physical and then there's the mental, emotional. Yeah. As far as pain is concerned, there's really nothing outside of that scope for a human being that could be perceived as painful.
Well, I mean, if you want some examples, I can think of one right off the top of my head. You could choose to feel hurt by doing an out of body experience.
And an out of body experience would be a mental trip.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what they are, to be honest. I mean, you guys
Yeah.
tell me it is, so I'll say, okay, I guess it is. But
So what I'm trying to say is, you know, a bit like Illusions, where he says, there's only two reasons you live this life. One is to, he breaks it down. So they either fall in one category or the other. Yeah. So it's either to learn or to have fun. So what you kind of get to the point of understanding is that the hurt that you're talking about, these two characters in you, Amy, is really just your mind cutting you up.
Right.
And as Abrams says, if you can just still that mind for a while, you can get a huge amount of relief.
Yes.
A huge amount of relief. So just making space between your mental and emotional and then your spiritual. So trying to make a gap a little bit bigger.
Yes.
And in that gap, you start finding your ability to start touching source.
I love how you phrase that. Wayne Dyer had, it was called Getting in the Gap. It was a meditation series. He was one of my favorite teachers. And that's when I first started learning how to meditate. And he would give you a sentence and tell you to rest in between the gap in between the words, because your mind wants to attach to a word. And so in that gap in between each word.
Interesting way of doing it.
Yeah. And that's what first really trained me how to get into the meditative state. So I just wanted to say, I love that you used that word, because it's exactly what it is. It's like a placeholder, just rest there for as long as you can do it.
Exactly. Find the gap. It's like when I arrived in London on the trains, they kept on saying to me, mind the gap, mind the gap, mind the gap. And I was so confused for weeks and weeks and weeks. I was on this train just hearing this thing, mind the gap. I said, what gap? What gap is he talking about? The only gap I can think about is not worth talking about. And eventually the guy said, one of the guys said, mind the gap between the train and the platform. And it was like, oh, that gap.
Got it.
And I think it's the same in life. Is you don't know what this gap is. You kind of finding this gap where you can start experiencing source.
Yes, learning to calm the mental chatter, because it will really run you, and it does prevent you from being more present in each moment. The more mind chatter you have, is the more focused you're on that, as opposed to experiencing, what's happening outside of you. So I think it's a very valid practice. And people will say, I can't calm my mind. Find ways, like you're saying, to get in that gap. I do it when I'm driving.
Yes,
because
driving is a great way. I don't know why, but it's a very significant way of just letting the mind. Often when I'm driving, I feel it's an unrealistic scenery that I'm driving through. It's just those.
Yes,
this doesn't really exist. There's something surreal about driving, something that you can start almost perceiving the vibration of the physical road and the air and the rather than the actual road, what I mean?
I know you guys experience this too. You know what your area that you live in, so you go on autopilot. You know where the grocery store is, wherever is. And so you're not really using your mental energy. So that's why I say practice meditation in the car, because you have to obviously be alert and aware of your surroundings to drive the car, hopefully. And so your mind is being occupied without actually with the mind chatter. So it's a wonderful way to start practicing meditation. It's try and allow your mind to just be still and observe what it's seeing without filling in the gap with all of the words. And I think it's a great way to practice calming the mind.
The fascinating thing for me is whenever it's happened, Amy, is during those times, I've never felt safer in the car. I've never felt a problem to myself or my environment.
Right. No, me either.
And it's very much enhanced. It's like an enhanced form of just total peace and safety for you and others.
That's wonderful.
As opposed to looking at tripping out in the car and on a hypnotherapist tape or something and crashing into somebody.
Yeah, I think this is about time we have to insert the message that says, please do not practice any of these things
Warning.
while operating machinery. This is not a good practice, okay?
Oh, I love that. That's hilarious.
It's funny also that you guys are talking about this because I have on many occasions tried various techniques like this idea of the gap and so forth, or blurring your eyes in order to see energy and all this kind of stuff. And what I've learned over time is those approaches don't work for me, which just goes to show everybody's different. Everybody has different things that work for them. For me, I mean, when it came to clearing my mind, what worked best was just talking to myself in the mirror and telling myself I love me. When I did that for 30 days, all the stuff went away that I didn't want to have there. So the gap, I have no idea where the gap went with all that. It just all I knew is that it worked. Yeah, screw the gap. I don't care about the gap. Damn tape stopped playing. That's all I care about.
Well, you bring up a wonderful point, and this is for all of our listeners. There are so many modes of getting into this kind of meditative state. Whatever works for you, you're going to know that you're there because you're going to feel a tremendous amount of peace and relief, because we don't even know how many thoughts we're having in a day until we actually quit thinking and allowing them all that, giving it all that mental space. It's like it's like a sigh for the brain and the body. Really, it is.
Honestly, my favorite way of clearing my mind, if I'm feeling overwhelmed in some way, I can't believe I'm saying this, is to do the dishes.
No,
it's an autopilot. Me too. I love to clean. I go on autopilot, so it's like the same thing as driving. I'm focused on action, and it just allows me to clear my mind. It's actually much more effective for me than sitting in yoga pose and lighting.
That never worked. That never ever worked
really
for me.
Either.
Walt, bringing that up brought back a memory of when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, I used to clear the table and dry. My sister used to wash. I used to dry and put away. My sister used to clear the table and wash the dishes. So we didn't have a dishwasher in those days. And I was so in autopilot. I knew where every plate went, and all the rest of it. And I started to realize that was the first time in my life that I started to meditate. So I have no problem giving my children chores to do that kind of work at home at all. If they can use that as a step towards meditation, I'm going to give it to them full on.
Your girls are going to come to you one day and say, "Oh my God, he's making me meditate again. Will you stop making me meditate?" Oh well, they'll get over it.
For not having for not having a topic today, that was, I think, a really great conversation on all of that.
That's usually what happens. Yeah, you get one thing started. I mean, we started with that I wasn't aware that you were able to channel stuff for other people, and it just kind of goes from there. That's par for the course around here. It's a really interesting thing, though, compared to what Louis was talking about earlier. Louis, you were talking about in a relationship when you focus exclusively on those things that made you, quote, fall in love or rise in love, or however you want to describe it, on somebody else, that you become more appreciative of it, and it just kind of builds and builds and builds, and the other stuff kind of falls away by the wayside. It's not really all that important. That's literally what we do here when we start with a topic, and it leads to one other topic, which leads to another one, that are all about things that we like.
Yes.
They're all things that feel good to us. I mean, we make jokes about them and we have fun with them and so forth, but ultimately that's what they are. They're stuff that we really, really like. That's how we end up with a daily dose of happy.
That's right.
That's precisely how it happens.
Gotta have it.
If it ever didn't happen, I'd be worried. I'd be thinking, like, maybe I got to rename the show or something. But 8.5 years later, so far so good. It hasn't really been an issue. One thing I do want to remind people about, though, is use the LOA Today app and send in questions, because we didn't really have a listener question to work with today, which would have been a lot of fun. And we really enjoy it when a listener sends in a question or just shares an experience. Deborah has been sending in a number of emails lately talking about how she's been reacting to the show. Literally, we often go from one show to the next saying what Deborah said about the last show. And it becomes, one topic after another that way. but become a part of the conversation. That's one of the reasons I created the LOA Today app, so you can do exactly that, send us stuff in. Not to mention that you can also listen to all the episodes. I also need to reiterate something I started saying about a week ago, and I keep promising myself that I'll say it every single episode, and then I forget, and then the show's always like, oh, geez, I forgot to do the promo on that. But Google and I had a little disagreement about Android apps about a week and a half ago, which we have since ironed out. But the gist of it is, if you have, and by the way, on the LOA Today app in the top right corner, you can see what the version number is. If you have version 1.1.83, the 8.3 is the key part, or less, 8.3 or less, you need, on Android only, not for iPhones, not PCs, not Macs, just Androids. If you have 8.3 or less, you need to uninstall it and then go reinstall again, because as it stands right now, if you have 8.3 or less on Android, it will never update. Thank you, Google. Appreciate that.
I need to do that.
And I actually can track to see how many people have done it. So far, about 10% of the people have actually made the transition. So I'm trying to make a real concerted effort to, say it like 4 or 5 times this week if I can. Just uninstall, and make sure you do it in that order, by the way. Please, God, if you have an Android and it has 8.3 or less, uninstall first. Do not try to install the new version first. You will create all kinds of havoc on your phone. You do not want to go there. Trust me on this one. Just do the uninstall first, then start from scratch, and everything will be golden. So just wanted to make sure I got that one in there. So, okay, well, let's see if we can summarize. I mean, first of all, this will help me put together what the title of the show is. That's always a big question for me. But let's see if we can summarize. What's the big takeaway today? What's the big message, the overarching theme of what we've been talking about? Amy, I'm going to go to you first because I kind of picked on you at the beginning about this, and then you ran as usual with it. So what's the overarching theme?
I think really, if I were to take away one through line of the theme today, would be just being in the present moment and learning how to do that, because you can't channel or do any of the other things that we were talking about unless you really are in the present moment and learning to get your mind clear. And so you can allow that source to come through and all the varying and wonderful ways that it does, whether it's through your creativity, somebody's trying to speak to you from the other side, your higher self, a vision of the future. There's so many things that are trying to come through, but you really do have to have kind of a blank movie screen in there in order to get those messages clearly.
Okay, good. Is that what your message would be, Louis, or do you have a different unifying theme?
No, mine would be simply fall in love with everybody. Well,
I love
everybody you can. Go see.
Sounds like something out of a Beatles song.
Go see the best aspects. Go for it. Try it out.
Right.
See what happens.
Wouldn't it be interesting if we spend our entire day focusing just on positive aspects of people?
Wouldn't it be great?
I mean, what kind of a day would that be? It would be unfamiliar. That's what it would be.
Exactly.
Do I hear a challenge?
In your life?
Do I hear a challenge for all of us and all of our listeners?
Yeah.
So we'll report back next Monday.
And use the LOA Today app to send in the message. Haha.
There you go.
Uninstall first.
Yeah, uninstall first on Android only. So, all right. Yeah, very good. I agree with you. And I totally agree, Amy, that the living in the now thing is really what it's all about. I'm glad that we destroyed goals here. I mean, that's not something you normally hear people say when they have some sort of public platform, but I'm really glad we just wiped them off the table. So thank you very much for helping me do that, guys. Very much appreciated. And I'll be seeing you guys next week. By the way, I want to remind people also that Cindy Chavez is on a sabbatical until around the spring equinox. Monique Scott is now sitting in for her. She's fabulous. You want to tune in and check out the shows with her. I was finding last week, she and I did our first full episode together. We have more stuff in common than we could shake a stick at, and that was after one episode. So, check that one out. Rita Giganti is also taking a sabbatical for an undetermined period of time. Linda, of course, will still be with us on Friday. If you have psychic questions, then that would be aimed at Dean, who's doing the Tuesday show with me. So reorient around that. And I'll be updating the app to reflect all those changes very soon. But guys, thank you very much. This has been great. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.